Jeremiah Smith and Nye Carr in Coral Gables this weekend. Our Steve Wiltfong with the latest on Miami's pursuit of the top 2024 receiver prospects. Five-star defensive lineman Aydin Breland announcing his decision in 9 days. A breakdown on what makes this recruit so special. And the Red River rivalry includes a battle on the recruiting trail to the top prospects to watch this weekend in Dallas. All this and more coming up on the College Football Recruiting Show. Good afternoon and welcome to the College Football Recruiting Show. I'm Grace Remington with Blair Angulo. And before we begin, you already know the drill. Please like this video and subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Blair, let's get into today's headlines, starting with four-star edge Brian Robinson in the 2024 class. He announced his commitment to Kentucky this week, the Ohio native choosing Mark Stoops' program over Michigan, Penn State, Tennessee, and others. Kentucky now moves into the top 25 of the recruiting rankings. So, Blair, what is Kentucky getting in this top 24/7 talent?
A big athletic edge rusher who 24/7 Sports national analyst Alan True believes could eventually slide inside. Huge talent, huge upside headed to Lexington.
Oklahoma landed its first 2026 commit on Tuesday as four-star running back Jonathan Hatton Jr. picked the Sooners. Hatton is a top 100 player and the number 5 running back in the 2026 cycle. The Texas native choosing Oklahoma over offers from Nebraska, Baylor, and others. Blair, what do you think of Brent Venables getting a jump start here on 2026?
It's never too early to go into the state of Texas for a recruit if you're the Sooners, especially during rivalry week. DeMarco Murray is getting a dynamic running back early on in the 26 cycle.
As part of a new deal, an NIL deal with Utah's Crimson Collective, all scholarship players on Utah's roster will receive a 2024 Dodge Ram, the lease and insurance fully funded by the collective, and the deal for all 85 scholarship players around $6 million. Blair, such a unique deal here. How much more enticing does something like this make Utah to recruits?
Well, you see the players reacting there. It's huge for the program. 3-star commit Sammy Hunter told me he's eyeing the all-black model. 4-star wide receiver David Washington says he can't wait to get behind the wheel. Recruits are buzzing about this deal.
It does sound pretty sweet. The NCAA announcing yesterday that they will be shortening the transfer portal window in all sports from 60 days to 45 days. Now, specifically for college football, the window at the end of the season will be 30 days, and the window in the spring will be 15 days. Blair, what kind of impact could this have on players' decisions to stay or transfer?
There's going to be a heightened sense of urgency. Players will have to know where they stand earlier in the offseason so they can make the appropriate decision, but I don't think it will reduce the number of transfers.
And probably the most talked about news coming out of Wednesday, the NCAA proposing a rule banning professional photo shoots during unofficial visits. However, prospects on official visits can still partake in the photo shoot. Blair, how big of a deal is this?
Well, it's big for recruiting staffers who are going to have a lot more free time now to worry about things that are much more important. Photo shoots have become an arduous part of the process, and I'd imagine we'll see fewer bulk trips from big groups as a result.
You know who I think could low-key rock one of those photo shoots is our friend Steve Wiltfong. It is time for Wiltfong Whiparound. Our director of recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, joining us with the latest. See, he's going at it right now. Steve, we'll start with Miami's pursuit of two of the top wide receivers in the 2024 class, 5-star Jeremiah Smith and 4-star Nye Carr. Now, Smith is an Ohio State commit, Carr currently uncommitted. Both will be in Miami this weekend for the game against Georgia Tech. Where does Miami stand with these top two targets?
Well, love where Miami stands with top 247 receiver Nye Carr, who decommitted from Georgia roughly 2 weeks ago. And as soon as he decommitted, several sources told me that Miami was the program to beat for him. Florida State, Auburn, also in the picture. And he was just at Auburn this past weekend, but he's going to be in Coral Gables this weekend. He's going to arrive on campus on Friday, where he'll meet with Coach Cristobal for the first time. And I think if that meeting goes well, if those two interact and jive well together, Miami's in position for some really good news from Nye Carr down the road. And with Jeremiah Smith, We talk about him a lot on the recruiting show. He's the #1 receiver in the country, longtime commit to Ohio State. And while I think it's a long road, a tough road to ultimately flip Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State because of his relationship with Brian Hartline and Ohio State's track record of offense and receiver production, trending for more first-round picks from that receiver room. If you talk to people around Coral Gables, people that have spent time with him at Miami, which this is a return trip to him since he's been committed to Ohio State, they feel that with a great season, they have a puncher's chance to land him. And guess what? That great season is happening. They should win again on Saturday, should remain undefeated. So they're doing all that they can to show Jeremiah Smith that this offense under Shannon Dawson and this program under Mario Cristobal and company collectively is on the right track. And this is another opportunity to continue to chip away at Ohio State if you're Miami.
Speaking of Saturday, Steve, A&M has perhaps its biggest home game of the season versus Alabama. Jimbo's getting some huge talent on campus, including 5-star Kobe Black, 4-star Cam McKell, and 4-star Jason Mitchell. As they look to cap off a strong cycle, Steve, how pivotal is this weekend for the Aggies?
Blair, Grace, hearing over 300 recruits expected for this game from 2024, 2025, and 2026. Thankfully, I don't think they'll be doing 300 photo shoots for this one, even though they technically still could. But 5-star corner Kobe Black, one of the most coveted players in the country. Been a lot of Texas buzz for Kobe. Love where the Longhorns stand. Aggies, probably the biggest challenger for him. Cameron Michael, top 247 athlete from the Peach State, who was at the pool party in July, coming back for his official visit with his cousin, his teammate, defensive end, Amontre Bradford. And Cameron Michael, Texas A&M is recruiting him the same way they recruited Terry Bussey, which is, dude, you can play left tackle here if you want to play left tackle. He's athletic, man. He can play offense. He can play receiver. He's one of the fastest players in the country. He can do a lot of things for you in the secondary. And so Texas A&M, they envision him helping in the pass game or in the secondary, but they'd love to have him. Solomon Williams is a defensive end that is coming off an official visit to Texas. Bama's in there, but A&M looking to make a move for him as well. And then the biggest name in the 2025 class is 5-star cornerback Devin Sanchez, who things have been picking up between him and Texas A&M over the last few months with BGA, the lead recruiter for Texas A&M there. But Alabama's always been in great position for him. Ohio State, LSU, but A&M rising in the ranks for Devin Sanchez as they get him and so many other offered targets in the younger classes inside Kyle Field, an opportunity to not only make a statement as they close out one of the best recruiting classes in the country here in 2024, but set the tone with so many top targets in 2025 and 2026 and beyond.
Florida State gets Virginia Tech in Tallahassee this weekend, Steve, and 4-star defensive lineman LJ McCray is among the notable official visitors. He's been pretty active recently, took visits to Florida and Auburn. How is his recruiting process shaping up?
Well, it's tight because, look, this is good news for Texas A&M that LJ McCray's coming, because every time he's seen one of his top schools play a game this fall, they've won in grand fashion. And Florida State was the first game. He saw him on a neutral field against LSU get a W. And he was at Florida for their big win over Tennessee. He was at Auburn last week for their great atmosphere. And here they are. He was at Miami for their big win over the Aggies. So here's an opportunity for Florida State to get another big win in front of LJ McCray. He loves Coach Odell Haggins and has a great rapport with him. And Florida State trying to make a move. If you had asked me coming into the season, I would have gave Georgia the edge. Florida's always been a mainstay at the top, but he's got a ton of family around Miami. Miami's doing well this year. So Auburn, he's clicked with Jeremy Garrett, and now Florida State, it's their turn again to make another move with LJ McCray.
Now, Mike Norvell and his staff have a couple more important commits on campus this weekend, and that's 5-star athlete KJ Bolden and 4-star cornerback Charles Lester. Both are committed to the Noles, but that hasn't stopped them from visiting elsewhere, Steve, namely Bolden, who has crystal balls logged for Georgia. So how important is this weekend for FSU to reaffirm those commitments from these guys?
Yeah, and I think it's a tough road for schools trying to flip KJ Bolden and Charles Lester right now. But Bolden was at Auburn last weekend. He's always loved being around that Auburn staff. They've done a magnificent job recruiting him. He was at Georgia earlier in the fall. Georgia has increased their intensity in the way they've recruited KJ Bolden. But KJ was at Florida State's opening win over LSU. He loved it. He's back in Tallahassee for this one. Still plans to take his official visit for the Miami game later in the season. So I like where they stand there, but always good to get them back around. And same goes with Charles Lester, who's visited Florida this year. Colorado's not going away for him as well. But Florida State, I still think they sit strong with these guys. And LJ McCray, getting those guys around LJ McCray this weekend will be big for the Noles.
Missouri versus LSU is another big game that will draw a lot of star power. 5-star commit Williams Nwaneri, as well as 5-star wide receiver Ryan Wingo. And then you have the top in-state players in both 25 and in 26 headed over to Missouri. Steve, how would you quantify the opportunity that Eli Drinkwitz has this weekend?
Well, I like where Texas stands with Ryan Wingo, the number 2 receiver in the country, but this is his second time seeing Mizzou play this fall. He was at the win over Memphis when they played in St. Louis. They love the offense. They love Coach Peeler and his track record of developing guys like A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. And Coach Drink, he is one of the most engaged head coach recruiters in the country, and he is not giving up on Ryan Wingo in this push. And Ryan Wingo could have went to Red River. He could have went to College Station this weekend to see Texas A&M play Alabama, but he's at Mizzou, continuing to give the home team an opportunity to recruit him, as Texas has been the program to beat since the fall. They got him back for the Wyoming game, but Mizzou hanging around, and you can't sleep on them in this recruitment. This is another opportunity to remain undefeated in front of him, to remain undefeated in front of Isaiah Mosey, the top 247 number 1 player in the state, receiver in the 2025 class. And those guys, seeing Luther Burden go off, Luther Burden had 10 catches for 177 yards against Memphis in front of Ryan Wingo the first time. His development under Coach Peeler is really standing out to those guys. And Coach Drinkowitz, he's not letting those families down from a recruiting aspect. And then Jackson Cantwell is the number 1 player in the state in 2026. Top 10 overall player for us in the 2026 rankings in offensive tackle, that's made the rounds this fall to like Oklahoma, Arkansas, Nebraska. He likes Alabama. He likes Georgia, but he also likes Mizzou. And what a great start to the season, as Jackson Cantwell is eventually going to get the same treatment that Ryan Wingo, Williams Nwaneri, and Isaiah Mosey are getting, if he's not already getting that from Mizzou currently.
Louisville with an exciting opportunity this weekend hosting Notre Dame. Jeff Brom has the Cards undefeated 5-0 for the first time since 2013. Now, several targets on campus for this top 25 matchup. Steve, what do you like most about Jeff Brom's first season here and just how he's bringing the energy on the field and on the trail?
Well, I think people kind of lost track of Jeff Brom and his brilliance as a head coach and as a play caller. And now he's at his alma mater, back in his city. He's at home with his brother. His son, Brady Brom, is like one of the key figures in the recruiting office at 18 years old. And it's a family enterprise there at Louisville. There's so much great positive energy from the city poured in, the investment from the university. And then Jeff Brom and his offense and his culture, they have not let anybody down since they got there. They got extra days to prepare for this Notre Dame game. I just picture him and his brother Brian sitting back. I don't know if they have a dip in or whatever, as they're just drawing up some new plays for this game against Notre Dame. But they're going to try and put on a show in front of a great list of recruits, a lot of offered guys, the top 247 guys that are coming, defensive end London Merritt, offensive lineman Chauncey Gooden. Those are some guys that they hope to make an impression on. But so many offered guys coming to Louisville for what's going to be an awesome environment. Louisville's a cool city, a night game. Notre Dame's in town. There's going to be a lot of energy, and this is just a big opportunity for Louisville to continue building on a great start that they're off to with 2025 recruits and beyond.
Flyville is certainly getting off the ground there in Louisville. And Steve, we usually ask you to give us the thumbs up so that we get some likes and we get some viewer questions. Well, this is exactly why. We have a question from Tyler Chambers. He wants to know, Steve, do you have any news on five-star defensive lineman Aydin Breeland before he commits?
Well, this was part of the Q&A of the whip around last Thursday as well. And at that point, I was still all in on thinking that Georgia had the edge going into his announcement, with Oregon and Miami giving chase. But the more I dig in on this recruitment and attack it with our colleague Greg Biggins, among other, Oregon is a program that it just seems like there's more and more buzz picking up around the Ducks. I think there's some people that think that Oregon is in the driver's seat for Aydin Breland, and there's another source said that, look, Oregon doesn't trail. So you got Miami in there still fighting to the end, and Mario Cristobal and company. Anytime they're battling for recruits, you figure they got more than a puncher's chance. And Georgia, he was at a Georgia game earlier this season. He wanted to get there and see that atmosphere in between the hedges, and they're certainly going to continue their push for him and LJ McCray, among others. But Oregon seems to be the team that might have the most buzz around them going into his upcoming decision. But one source said, look, this thing's fluid. So, we'll see what happens down the home stretch.
All right, Steve, appreciate you joining us as always. And we'll find a way to sneak you into a photo shoot one of these days. But for more coverage from the pulling of Brian Kelly, you're ready to go. More coverage from the recruiting trail all around the country. Be sure to subscribe to us at the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel and turn on those notifications so you never miss a tape breakdown, expert analysis, or a live commitment. Texas and Oklahoma descending upon the state fair for the 119th edition of the Red River Showdown. But it's a rivalry off the field as well. Two top 10 classes going head-to-head for the same recruit. So for more, let's welcome in Hank South of Horns 24/7 and Collin Kennedy of Sooners Illustrated. Collin, I'll start with you. Oh, you're ready for your photo shoot too. Okay, we got to get I don't know what those spinny cameras are. Let's just rent them and put them in studio here. Invite everyone. All right, Collin, the winner of Saturday's game stays undefeated. They take the outright lead in the Big 12, bragging rights, so a lot on the line here. But typically these schools are fighting for the same prospects as well. So take us through the list of the top prospects at the Cotton Bowl this weekend that both schools here are targeting.
Yeah, there's a running joke to start it off right now. This may be the 119th edition of the Red River Rivalry, but it's the very first edition of the Michael Fasusi Bowl. And I'll tell you, I don't know if we're going to get a second edition by the time he potentially makes a decision, but we'll see. Obviously, a lot of recruits like to try and wind things down prior to their senior year. And look, five-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi is probably going to be no different. And these two programs are heavily in the mix. I actually talked to Michael earlier in the week about how excited he is to get there. And I can tell you on the Oklahoma side of the equation, I actually talked to a source today about just how excited they are that he's going to be in the building. This is one that OU really wants badly. I mean, Kevin Sperry, 2025 quarterback commit, has gone out of his way to go and recruit Michael whenever he's on campus. They're constantly in communication with Michael any chance that they get, and Bill Beanbo has obviously left a mark on this recruitment, as you'd expect. But overall, that's the guy you have to lead off with, right, Hank? I mean, Michael Fasusi is arguably the biggest name going to be in attendance on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not the only one in that DFW area on the offensive line that both these teams are recruiting. I think he's probably the biggest name, like you just mentioned. But, Lamont Rogers, Ty Haywood, two additional guys in that DFW area that Texas, at least, is pushing for in that 2025 class. Along the offensive line, they're kind of hitting a hot streak now in 2024. They just added Brandon Baker, the five-star offensive tackle from Mater Dei High School. They're only probably going to take at least four linemen in the 2024 class, so that might open the door for some, bigger numbers in 2025. Another guy I obviously want to mention is Kobe Sellers, a four-star cornerback from Pearland. He's going to be in attendance, and he's a guy that this one could come down to Texas and Oklahoma when all is said and done. He's actually a Baton Rouge native, but the schools we've been hearing the most about with him, at least through the summer and early in the fall, have been Texas, Oklahoma, and Baylor. And he is interested in LSU and Texas A&M, but I think ultimately this one could come down to the Sooners and the Longhorns. So he's expected in attendance. A lot of the commitments, obviously with Texas being the home team, they've been able to invite a good number of guys. And that's also, a built-in benefit of the Cotton Bowl is it's in a recruiting hotbed. So, they can get a lot of these big-name targets that both of these programs are going after year after year.
Hank, this will be the final time.
Oh, Blair, wanted to mention real quick, too, because Hank's done an outstanding job of the visitor list and some of the big names. The maybe on that list is Jonah Williams, right? I mean, Jonah Williams is a 5-star in the class. Both Texas and Oklahoma really want this guy, and if he does show up, currently down as a maybe, that's huge for both programs as well. So even with the visitors list being what it is, Jonah Williams could even add to it.
Hank, this will be the final time that these two teams face off as members of the Big 12. Do you view this game as a measuring stick game as both programs try to size each other up ahead of their move over to the SEC and what their recruiting needs might be?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny, as much as these two teams are rivals and it can get so heated, They've kind of been a little bit of partners lately, with this Big 12 exit. It's almost kind of like the Forget You Bowl for the Big 12. They want to show this conference, what they're losing next year with, Brett Yormark's comments and all that. So, I think in terms of measuring stick, I think we both knows what we know what both these teams can bring to the table. Obviously, Texas measured up pretty well earlier this season against Alabama. Oklahoma has been in the playoff consistently. They've competed against SEC teams. So, I think Oklahoma obviously wants to have a little bit better of a showing this year ahead of their move to the SEC, especially, with this 2024 class being the first full recruiting class each of these programs is going into the SEC with. So certainly want to have a good showing. But in terms of measuring stick, I think both these teams, blue blood college football programs, I think they're only going to add to this, add to the SEC and, with everything they bring to the table.
Yeah, I think for Oklahoma, it is a measuring stick to a degree. I think Texas is a little bit further along than OU right now. And I think Oklahoma staff would even tell you they're still trying to build further and further towards the SEC and the type of level of play you have to have. And a lot of that has to do with the 2024 class, right? I mean, OU said to bring in a number of defensive linemen, could be looking for more, trying to get more offensive line commits as well. And obviously they're trying to put together another impressive class under Brent Venables. And the roster overhaul that's taken place over the past 2 years is notable, to say the least, but it's still a work in progress. And I think for Texas, they've done an outstanding job of building up in the right places. Oklahoma's actively trying to get there, and they've done a great job to this point. But I think, again, even they would tell you they're still trying to surge in certain departments in order to make this roster look exactly the way that Brent Venables and his staff want it to look like.
I don't know how I've never heard this be referred to as the Forget You Bowl, but Hank, I'm going to have to start calling it that now. Just a reminder to everyone, please like this video if you haven't done so already. Help us continue getting the content out there. There you go, Collin with the thumbs up dance, stealing that from Wiltfong. Collin, I'm actually coming back to you. Oklahoma's 2024 class right now does have the edge in the recruiting rankings. They sit 7th nationally with 24 commits. That includes 2 5-stars and 12 4-stars. Now, 24 commits, that's a pretty full class. So are they kind of done on the trail right now? And if not, who else might they be looking to add?
They're basically wrapped up to a degree. I think that there's a few more names out there that Oklahoma fans are keeping an eye on as potential additions to this 2024 class. Namely, the guy that's going to eventually make his decision next week, Daniel Akinkunmi, the #1 rated player in England. He is an offensive lineman who actually took in his first ever college football game in person in Norman, Oklahoma. And if you know anything about Norman, Oklahoma game day atmospheres, it'll leave a lasting impression on you. And then on top of that, once he was able to go experience Norman in person, meet with some other commits for Oklahoma, and he had Wagyu beef for the first time out in Oklahoma too, so not the worst thing in the world either. He actually ended up canceling a number of his visits after that trip. And so Daniel Akinkunmi is a potential addition coming up in the very near future. Again, he'll decide next Thursday, and Oklahoma's feeling good there. Next up, though, on the note of offensive line play, Grant Bricks. It feels like every single time I come on the show, I have to talk about this guy. And I hate to say it, but not much new to report. I mean, he's one of the biggest wild cards in this 2024 cycle. Oklahoma and Nebraska seemingly battling it out still, with Kansas State still hovering. Sometimes Oklahoma will feel really good on a particular day. Other days, Nebraska feels really good on a particular day. So this one continues to kind of drag out, and everyone's waiting to see what Grant Brix will do. But Oklahoma would love to add this guy as one of the final kingpin pieces in the 24 cycle. And then to close it out, the notable name that's sort of arisen late is Reggie Powers, the former Michigan State commit at safety. 6'1" 200 pounds, really ideal fit for what Brent Venables looks for at the safety position. And this is sort of a potential partnership that's increasing in likelihood. Reggie Powers, after his decommitment, I was told by a source they were going to try and feel some things out. Obviously, OU in the mix for guys like Michael Boganowski and Devin Jordan at safety. But as discussions have gone on between the two, our own Alan True reported that Powers will be on campus October 21st. And Oklahoma sources are feeling better and better about this one as the days go by. So Reggie Powers, definitely one of the newer names to know in 2024.
Texas, on the other hand, Hank, is 15th in the recruiting rankings. They only have 18 commitments, so there's still some work to do heading into December. Who are some names that you're monitoring as the Longhorns try to finish this class on a strong note?
Yeah, Texas fans have been kind of wondering, when is that Alabama win recruiting momentum going to, kick off? And obviously we saw Brandon Baker commit a couple weeks ago, 5-star offensive tackle, but some of the big fish they're still trying to add to this class are out there. You start with Steve mentioned Ryan Wingo, the 5-star wide receiver from Missouri. He's one of Texas's probably top 2 targets remaining in this class. It's going to be an opportunity where, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, they're out of eligibility, not out of eligibility, but potentially moving on after this season to the NFL. There's going to be opportunities for younger guys to step in, and Ryan Wingo is certainly a guy that, could be an immediate impact type player at the next level. Texas has been trending, but like Steve mentioned, like we've been mentioning, Mizzou is certainly a threat, and that's where he'll be this weekend. And probably the other biggest target of Texas remaining is Kobe Black, the 5-star cornerback from Waco. He's a guy that's expected at Texas A&M this weekend. He hasn't been to Texas yet this fall, to my knowledge. He still plans to get out to a game. Obviously, he's been to Austin a few times throughout his recruitment, so he's very familiar with that. But that's another recruitment where Texas has been kind of just chugging along there, being the trending team. Texas A&M obviously has them this weekend. I know LSU's been mentioned, Alabama's been mentioned, but I think this in the end could maybe potentially come down to Texas and Texas A&M for Kobe Black. With Texas, I think, is the team to beat. So those are probably the 2 biggest targets. You could mention other guys. Solomon Williams, the 4-star edge rusher. They recently put out a new offer to a defensive lineman committed to Auburn, Dimitri Nicholas. So definitely still guys in the mix, but I think in terms of the 2 biggest targets remaining, you go Kobe Black and Ryan Wingo.
All right, Hank South and Collin Kennedy, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the game on Saturday. And for more of their work, remember you can check it out at Horns 24/7 and Sooners Illustrated. But regardless of the team you root for, check out this deal. 2 months of 24/7 sports for $1. How's that sound? Yeah, all of it. I'm talking all of it for just $1. You can get the latest insider info before anyone else. Make some friends on the message boards. Sign up today, 24/7 Sports, 2 months for $1. You know what else you can find over on 247sports.com? A crystal ball for Aydin Breland. Decision day coming up for the 5-star defensive lineman. He will make his announcement October 14th between a final 3 of Georgia, Miami, and Oregon. Our Smoke Dixon has more on the top talent from the state of California.
Today, we're going to get into a little bit of film study on one of the most dominant defensive linemen left in this 2024 recruiting class, Aydin Breland. That scheme versatile that can play in the 3-4 or the 4-3 defense. Let's get to him. First thing we want to look at is his first step get off. Gets off, the first one into the ball, into the blocker. Now you're going to see his strength to be able to knock that blocker back, control him, but also have enough burst and athleticism and motor to get to the quarterback and drive the quarterback down to the ground. Controlling another human being is one of the most unreal things that he can do, and this kid does it naturally and flawlessly. Motor, get to the quarterback, sack, plays over. Next thing is one of the most important things is the ability to have knockback power and knockback explosive contact balance, and also being able to lock, locate, and shed and find the ball carrier. And this kid does it at an alarming rate. So here we go. First step, get off, into him. Control, a little bit high, but he has enough power under his base right there to be able to lock that guy out and control him. Control, shed, locate the ball carrier. And this is one thing I love about him. He never stops till he hears the echo of the whistle, and he's going to take this guy all the way back here somewhere and drive him into the ground. Last but not least, lateral quickness and lateral agility. That means a big man with sweet feet. We all hear about guys that can dribble a basketball and move all over the place. This guy has great feet, awesome quickness, and has the ability to burst and find the ball carrier. It's 2-on-1. Makes the guy miss, locates the ball carrier. Now you're going to see that quick feet to get skinny right through there. That's being flexible with his hips. Get through there, flatten out, and make a tackle. It's going to go by so fast, but you're going to see a big man at 6'5", 290 be able to get skinny, split these two blockers, laterally explode, and get down the line of scrimmage and make a tackle for a loss. Now, at the end of the day, whoever gets this young man is going to get a scheme-savvy guy that can play in a 4-3 scheme, a 3-4 scheme, play at the edge of the 5 technique, which is defensive end, or get inside and be an interior 2 or 3 technique. Aydin Breeland, one of the best defensive linemen that's left in this 2024 recruiting class, that whoever gets him is going to be very happy.
All right, thank you, Smoke. And another reminder, subscribe to 247sports.com for the latest from the recruiting trail, player scouting reports, and the most accurate ratings. It is time to mark your calendars. Here's the biggest events going on this weekend. A battle of 2 undefeated programs taking place in Arizona tomorrow night between Chandler High School and Centennial High School. Chandler ranked number 2 in AZ with Centennial ranked number 3. Blair, which recruits are you watching in this one?
It's a battle between 2 future Big Ten players. Khalil Valentine, the running back at Chandler, against Noah Carter, the edge rusher from Centennial, who's headed to play his college ball for the Washington Huskies. It's the game inside the game. Huskies versus Illini. I think Khalil Valentine has all the tools to be a big impact player at the next level. And then on the defensive side of the ball for Chandler, Kennedy Urlacher, the son of Brian Urlacher, committed to Notre Dame, a player we really like. I'm expecting him to make a big impact on the defensive side of the ball.
Sione Laulea, the number 1 JUCO cornerback in the 2024 class, will announce his commitment right here on Commitment HQ, the 247 Sports YouTube channel, this Sunday at 9:45 p.m. Eastern. He is choosing between Miami, Oregon, and USC. Blair, where are you leaning for the College of San Mateo product?
Miami and Oregon hold most of the buzz right now for Sione, but it does sound like the Hurricanes are trending. That's where the noise is loudest right now. Our colleague Brandon Huffman will have all the latest this weekend as Sione makes his decision. It's going to be really intriguing and fascinating to watch.
All right, Blair, we have quite the slate of games this weekend. It's Texas and Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry, Mizzou hosting LSU in a top 25 matchup, Georgia heading to Kentucky, a matchup of undefeated SEC East teams, and undefeated Louisville welcoming a really tough Notre Dame team. What's the biggest recruiting storyline here that you're watching?
For me, it has to be Texas, Oklahoma. That has the most implications. It's going to be a game that not only a number of recruits are going to get to, obviously down there in Dallas, but I think recruits from across the country will be tuning in on TV to watch that. And it's huge. It's a huge opportunity for Coach Steve Sarkisian, for Brent Venables on both sides as they try to make a push and make an impression on recruits ahead of their move over to the SEC. And the winner will have some momentum on the recruiting trail heading into that new conference.
Yep, it's the first meeting where Oklahoma and Texas are both undefeated since 2011. So this one is going to be a doozy. All right, before we get out of here, I want to give a quick shout out to producer Lance. He is headed for the bright lights of New York City, so we can only hope that he doesn't get lost somewhere in the subway system. He actually helped create this show, so we will miss him and his cat crashing our Zoom meeting. So thank you, Lance. Good luck to you. As for me and Blair, we will be back Monday. So thank you for watching. This has been the College Football Recruiting Show. Have a great night.